Fired up over a North County gun show. We'll hear from both sides of the debate.
Oh, we'll turn blue with a little help from our friends. Oh.
What has been billed as the longest-running congressional protest in the nation came to an end today. The next big project for these protesters in North County.
Once you post something on the internet, it's never going to go away. Once you hit that click, it's there forever.
Thanks for sharing. Americans changing the way they update social media and the big worries about what happens to all that data. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. A big turnout at the Del Mar Fairgrounds this afternoon, where the future of a popular yet controversial gun show is being debated. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman is live in Del Mar with some of the public comment and what happens next. Matt?
Yeah, Ebony, we're out here in Del Mar. This was the Del Mar Fairground Board's last meeting before the next scheduled gun show. Today, no action is going to be taken at this meeting. Instead, they're listening to what people have to say. Now, right behind me, the meeting got started around 2 p.m. today, and it's still going on here in Del Mar. People were at the fairgrounds early this afternoon lining up to get speaker slips. Around 100 people signed up for public comment, advocating both for and against the Crossroads of the West gun shows. The gun shows have been held in Del Mar several times a year for nearly 3 decades. People against the shows say it does not reflect San Diego's culture, while the owner of the show believes people are using recent school shootings to try and get rid of gun shows altogether.
Gun shows are bad or evil, but that this San Diego beach culture is not the place for them, because we have Kaboo and we have the fair and we have the races and those types of family-friendly events here. But the gun show is something that doesn't represent the belief system of this community.
They've seized on this latest tragedy in an attempt to re-energize their movement. But we'll certainly listen to the board. We don't know what their concerns are. They need to address the concerns, of course, of the local people too, but again, it's a constitutionally protected event. We fully expect to be able to continue to do gun shows here at Del Mar.
Yeah, now Crossroads of the West, they say this has been an ongoing battle with Del Mar and other North County cities for the last 20 years. And the next scheduled gun show is next month in May on the 19th and 20th. Live here in Del Mar, Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Thanks, Matt. Republican lawmakers in Sacramento are trying to close what they say is a loophole in Prop 57. The ballot measure passed by voters in 2016 reformed the parole system for nonviolent offenders. Today at the Capitol, a bill that would prevent the release of serious felons, including those convicted of sex crimes, stalled in committee. Opponents of the Republican plan say they want to wait for ongoing court cases involving Prop 57 to be decided. San Diego County will spend nearly $1 million to clear a backlog of untested rape kits. Interim District Attorney Summer Stephan made the announcement today, saying 350 kits will be sent this week to an outside lab. Nearly 1,000 kits will eventually be processed. Results from the first batch will be added to the national database by the end of the month.
When the Department of Justice changed its guidelines in August of 2017, for the first time recommending that all rape kits be tested, it gave us further leverage to push for testing and to prioritize the funding of the inventory in San Diego County.
The 1,000 untested rape kits will come from the San Diego County Sheriff's Department and other local agencies. Kits from the San Diego Police Department are not part of this project. Local and state agencies are continuing their investigations into high-caliber horse rescue despite an announcement over the weekend that the nonprofit is closing. KPBS media partner iNewsSource spoke to High Caliber's attorney. Sean Jones. Jones said he's been in contact with several enforcement agencies and could not confirm that their investigations had been dropped against the Valley Center nonprofit. In addition, the state veterinary board told iNews Source this week its investigation of high caliber is continuing. County code violations also still need to be fixed, a spokesman said. A group opposed to short-term vacation rentals in San Diego's residential neighborhoods says Councilman Scott Sherman has a conflict of interest. But is it a conflict? Here's iNews Source reporter Leonardo Castaneda with details.
The allegation is this: Sherman's father owns more than 30 apartment units in San Diego, which the councilman might one day inherit. Because Airbnbs and other short-term rentals could make those units more valuable, Sherman has a conflict. Save San Diego neighborhood opposes short-term residential rentals and has shared its allegation against Sherman in emails and on social media. I talked to Robert Stern, an ethics expert with Californians Aware. He says the state's conflict of interest law only applies to the elected official, his or her spouse, and their dependent children.
It does not apply to relatives or friends or colleagues. Otherwise, it would just be too broad and everybody would be disqualifying themselves on everything.
Complaints about the possible conflict were made to city and state watchdog agencies, but both found no evidence to warrant an investigation. Even so, the allegation is expected to resurface when the council again debates short-term rentals. The mayor's office says it will be out with a proposal very soon. For KPBS, I'm iNews Source reporter Leonardo Castaneda.
iNews Source is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. President Donald Trump is hosting French President Emmanuel Macron at the White House. During a joint press conference, President Trump made comments on his continued push for stricter immigration policies.
Both the United States and France are dealing with a challenge that has gone on for a long, long time. It's uncontrolled migration. In the United States, we are taking strong action to regain control over our borders and over our sovereignty. It's gone on for too long, and we've slowed it down very substantially, but we're going to stop illegal immigration. I know that you face similar challenges in France, and Mr. President, I admire the leadership you have shown in addressing them in a very honest and direct fashion, and not always popular.
The two presidents also spoke about negotiations with North Korea and Iran regarding their nuclear programs and the war in Syria. A state dinner is being held tonight at the White House for the French president. The San Diego Union Tribune reports Congressman Hunter is requesting a special legal expense fund. If so, donors would be allowed to pay his legal costs while he runs for re-election. Hunter represents the 50th district. The FBI is looking into whether the Republican from Alpine misused campaign money for personal expenses. The Union Tribune reports legal expense fund requests are rarely granted.
Good morning, everybody. Show me what democracy looks like. This is what democracy looks like. Show me.
Protesters gathered outside Congressman Darrell Issa's Vista office one last time today, capping off nearly 16 months of demonstrations. Issa is not running for re-election in the 49th district. The protesters say they will now focus on voter turnout.
Now, if you look back over here, we have hundreds of people who were never active in the political process before, me included. And these people are now out walking neighborhoods, talking to their friends, and being active in the political process, which I think is amazing.
Indivisible is hoping to flip the 49th district seat from Republican to Democrat. Our primary election coverage continues with one of the youngest candidates running for Issa's seat. Democrat Sarah Jacobs is running against a wide field of candidates. KPBS reporter Allison St. John talked to her about what makes her campaign stand out from the rest.
So Sarah, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So now you have never held elected office before. So what qualifies you to run for Congress? Why are you running for Congress?
Well, like many women around the country, I never thought I would run for office, actually. But I really feel like our country is in a critical moment, and we don't have time for the same politicians with the same ideas, and we don't have time to wait our turn anymore. I have always known that I was the beneficiary of an unfair system, and from an early age I knew it was my responsibility to use those advantages and use those opportunities to make things fairer and to make sure that everyone had access to opportunity, and that's what led me into a career of public service. I joined the Obama State Department because I believed in President Obama's message that we didn't have to wait for change and that we didn't have to settle for the way that things had always been done. I served as a foreign policy advisor to Hillary Clinton during the presidential campaign. I've worked at UNICEF using technology to better serve vulnerable children. I was the CEO of an international education nonprofit that was working to advocate for equitable access for every school around the world. And I think if we're going to be able to solve our problems and if we're going to be able to actually make change, then we need to change who we send to Congress, and we need a new approach.
So let's talk about some of the issues. Immigration.
Yes.
Where do you stand on DACA and providing a replacement for DACA, the policy that would allow a path to citizenship for children brought here illegally as children?
I believe that we need to pass a Clean Dream Act, and we need to pass it now. I've talked to voters throughout our district, and whether or not they identify as Democrat or Republican, everyone agrees that these young people who were made a promise that if they came forward and gave the government their information in order to have a pathway, that they should be able to have that pathway to stay here. I believe we need a comprehensive approach to immigration reform in this country. We need a pathway to citizenship. We need to prioritize keeping families together. We do need to make sure that companies can get the workers that they need, but also that they're not abusing the system to outsource jobs. And I think that there's a way to do all of that and a way to make compromise. You know, if you look at the DREAM Act, we actually have the votes to be able to pass it. It's just that Republican leadership won't even let it come to the floor for a vote. And that, to me, is abhorrent because these young people's lives are upended for nothing more than a political game.
So what's your position on the wall and the funding that President Trump is asking for to expand it?
I don't think building a wall makes any sense. It's not going to make us safer. It's not a good use of our resources. I do think that there are some new technologies we can bring to the border that will make it easier and faster to cross and transit the border, which will actually also be good for our environment because we won't have cars idling there at the border for 4 hours at a time. But I don't think a wall makes any sense at all.
There's a big debate about gun control, gun regulation in this country, and I don't know what kind of specific measures that you would pursue that you think might actually pass.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have been so heartened to see the young people really taking a stand and leading the way. I really believe that it's because of them that this time will be different, and that on an issue that has felt intractable for so long, we'll really be able to make progress and pass common sense gun reform. And one of the things I've been so heartened to see is that these young people know that they need to translate that activism and energy into political change. And we actually had a group of high school students who reached out to me after the March for Our Lives because they wanted to meet with me to talk about what they could do to take that energy and excitement and really turn it into concrete political change. So what do I think common sense gun reform looks like? I think we need to ban assault weapons and all military grade weapons from our streets. We need to make sure that anyone who's buying a gun is getting a background check and closing the loopholes. We need to be able to hold gun stores liable, and we need to be able to study gun violence as a public health threat.
You are very young, not yet 30, is that correct?
That's correct.
Why is it you think that youth is actually an advantage for somebody running for Congress?
Well, it's true that I am young. I would actually be the youngest woman that we've ever elected to Congress. We've never had a woman in their 20s in Congress, but we've had hundreds of people my age or younger serving in Congress. They just all happen to be men. I think this year voters are looking at a broken Washington and they want something different. They want a new approach, and they want someone who will bring a fresh energy and isn't beholden to the old ways of thinking and the old ways of doing things. And we've seen an incredible amount of energy and excitement, particularly among young people and women, for our campaign.
Well, Sarah Jacobs, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Sarah Jacobs is the granddaughter of Qualcomm founder Irwin Jacobs, who has been a donor to KPBS over the years. As the June primary nears, KPBS News will continue to reach out to candidates. You can see more of our election coverage at kpbs.org. A couple of weeks ago, the founder of Facebook sat before Congress to explain how user data is shared. And now an Associated Press poll shows the privacy scandal is changing the way people use social media. AP reporter Terry Che has the story.
In the wake of Facebook's data privacy scandal with Cambridge Analytica and CEO Mark Zuckerberg's high-profile grilling by Congress, Americans are changing the way they use social media.
Yes, I have definitely reviewed my privacy settings on all of my main social media accounts and have changed them slightly.
Yes, I use social media less often due to general privacy concerns, and I don't put personal information out.
A new poll by the Associated Press Nork Center for Public Affairs Research found that 7 in 10 Americans who heard about the Facebook controversy have made at least one change in how they interact with social media sites. Americans reported unfollowing certain people or groups, uninstalling social media apps on their phone, or deleting accounts entirely. Most internet users say they're concerned companies won't secure their personal information, or they'll keep copies of files even if they try deleting them.
Pretty much, once you post something on the internet, it's never going to go away. Once you hit that click, it's there forever. It's just a question of finding it. And so nowadays, people are pretty savvy at finding things.
Users are worried about their data falling into the hands of hackers, as well as advertisers, businesses, and governments. Fewer than half are concerned about political campaigns getting their data, even though most are aware that Cambridge Analytica, which worked for President Trump's 2016 campaign, obtained the personal information of up to 87 million Facebook users. Americans see protecting data as a responsibility shared by social media companies, individual users, advertisers, and businesses. Fewer say it's the government's responsibility.
I think this is a watershed moment for privacy online. I think it'll have a fundamental effect on the economics and the revenue for the company, and so I think it's pretty central in terms of running their business that they take this issue seriously. If not, then I think Congress will have more of an excuse to come and legislate things.
For social media companies to restore public trust, Professor Abhishek Nagaraj believes they must provide better tools for users to control their data and create a corporate culture that emphasizes protecting consumer privacy. Terry Che, Associated Press, Berkeley, California.
I'm Amna Navaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump welcomes French President Macron to the White House with the looming decision on the Iran deal on the line. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Warm, sunny weather will continue this week and through the weekend. Aaron Calandra has details in tonight's forecast.
We had a gorgeous day here today in San Diego. I hope you were able to get outside and enjoy it. In the morning times, a couple of clouds around, very typical. We have this onshore flow. You can see it perfectly here with these clouds coming in off the ocean. Well, that creates some cloudier conditions in the morning, but by midday, lots of sun and near perfect temperatures. Taking a look at the bigger picture, there's awfully a lot of clouds out there over the ocean, but the interior areas stay nice and dry. For tonight, 55 degrees. Those clouds, of course, are going to be building mainly along the coast. And Oceanside tonight, 51 degrees. San Diego at 55. Chula Vista, just a bit cooler at 52. And in Borrego Springs, 64 degrees. Now tomorrow, near perfect along the coast. Look at that. San Diego, Chula Vista at 67 degrees. Ramona, 79. But once you get into the deserts, yikes, nearly 100 degrees in Borrego Springs, 98. Hopefully you are drinking lots of water. Make sure you slather on that sunblock if you're going to be outside. The sun is awfully intense this time of year. So we have a high pressure system in in place tomorrow. That means lots of sunshine for everyone, and the Southwest is cooking. We're going to see record challenging temperatures in those interior areas, the deserts, around 100 degrees. But along the coast, because of that onshore flow, we're seeing much cooler and very comfortable temperatures. So along the coast, we're going to stay in the upper 60s, low 70s all week. Saturday, we could see a couple extra wind gusts around. That's because there is a storm to the north of us, and that's creating some wet conditions for them. Won't reach us. We'll just see some wind gusts. And then in the interior areas, staying in the 70s, a bit cooler by the weekend in the low 70s with sunshine. And in the mountains, we're in the 60s. By Sunday, down to 60 degrees, so kind of a chillier day on Sunday. And in the deserts, hot through Friday in the 90s. And then Saturday and Sunday, a nice little break. We'll be in the 80s with plenty of sun. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra. Ebony, back to you.
Since the 1950s, Mad Magazine has lampooned politics, celebrities, sports, and entertainment. One of the artists is revealing how he makes the caricatures that appear in Mad Magazine's pages. Twin Cities PBS in St. Paul, Minnesota has the story.
I was a big fan of Batman when I was a kid. My dad worked at a grocery store and would bring home comics all the time. And I spent a lot of time in the basement drawing my own comics and drawing Batman and science fiction and Star Wars and that type of thing. And that was what really got me interested in storytelling and cartooning and doing comics. When I was a kid in elementary school, I got in trouble doing caricatures. I wasn't paying attention in class. I was drawing a caricature while my teacher was teaching a caricature unit. And he made me stay after class. And when he got a load of the caricature I was doing, he had me go around the school and draw caricatures of all the teachers, and we had a little show. And that was my first experience actually understanding these funny pictures of people I'm drawing are caricatures. Cartooning is storytelling in a more of a simplified form. It's usually funny, but not always. But caricature is specifically people, and drawing a caricature of somebody is exaggerating them as a person, not only their features, but their personality and their presence and the things that they do. Mad Magazine has been around for 64 years now, I think. And I finally got into Mad in 2000. Mostly what I do for Mad these days are the movie and TV parodies, which are sort of a staple of the magazine. You know, they pick a movie and make fun of it. Right now I'm working on the latest Hunger Games movies, and they call it the Hunger Pains. I think with Mad you have to, caricature, especially with what I do, is important. And then also having a sense of humor and writing little visual gags and stuff are important too. So this is what's called the layout, and when I get this for Mad, it's got all the word balloons in place with all the jokes. It's a 2-page spread of the TV show Orange is the New Black. So this is the final inks for that 2-page splash. And then this is the final as it appeared in the magazine, full color. So I color most of my work digitally, and this is what's called a Wacom Cintiq monitor, which is a tablet that allows you to color. Here's my inked version of it, and I scan that in and bring it into Photoshop here. And then what I do is I just start laying in color. It isn't just a picture of something, it's trying to get across the message of the article. So if it's critical about something or somebody, your illustration should reflect that. I usually tell it through humor. Most of my stuff is humorous. Well, this is the book I wrote on how to draw caricatures, and talks a lot about the theories behind what makes a caricature successful, and what you want to look for in various faces, and it really breaks faces down into individual shapes, and lots of caricatures throughout the whole thing. Different celebrities demonstrating different types of facial features and different types of exaggeration. The shape of the head is the really most important thing. That's where most of the exaggeration goes, because you can really exaggerate, the shape of a head, and all the other features have to follow through. When I started out doing cartooning, I got this job as a college student doing caricatures, and I started working for this company, and they had me move to Atlanta and run an operation for them. And while I was there, I opened up my own in Atlanta. Since then, I expanded, and I have caricatures out at Valley Fair and here at the Mall of America at Nick Universe. Everybody together, or just you guys? You're first? All right. There. Jump in there, bud. Ready? Well, I think as an artist, you always want to gravitate towards the things that are natural to you. And when I was going to school for realistic art and painting, I could do it. I just noticed eventually that whenever I didn't have anything specific to do and it was just me and a piece of paper and I could draw whatever I wanted, I always did funny drawings. And when I got that job doing caricatures at a Six Flags park during the summer in college, I realized, you know what, I'm a lot better and it's more natural for me to do the funny stuff. I'm not looking to change the world. I just want to make people laugh occasionally and lighten their day, and I love it.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.